Hey, it's Sean, and I am so grateful that you are listening to the Two Disabled Dudes podcast. Thank you. This episode is a continuation from the one right before it. Episode 297 features the first half of our conversation with friend and fellow advocate Debbie Drell. If you haven't listened to episode 297, you might feel a little lost. Either way, here's a brief recap and foundation of who Debbie is and what brought her to our show.
Then she got diagnosed with a rare disease that they told her she wouldn't live for 2 years. Like, she had 2-year life sentence. They said, you have 2 years. You're not going to live to see your 30th birthday. But she's still alive. And that was a long time ago, 25 years ago, I think. She has 5 rare conditions now. But it's the life-threatening, life-shortening, disabling condition called pulmonary hypertension that was what compelled me to start working in rare disease nonprofit organizations. And so she's my big sister. I've been her primary caregiver for many years. We've lived together for many years. She inspired me, and I'm motivated by my love for her to continue to work on patient advocacy. And for 14 years, I was really privileged to be a full-time staff member at her association dedicated to her disease. So it's called the Pulmonary Hypertension Association. And then I did patient engagement and community building. I worked with support groups and volunteers, and it helped me understand not only her disease and the challenges, but the value of community. And so her journey has shaped so much of who I am, and I'm really grateful to share her story here.
Welcome to the Two Disabled Dudes podcast. We believe life is about how we react. Please enjoy the rest of our conversation with Debbie Drell. You've shared a lot. You helped all of us in the beginning understand a little more about pulmonary hypertension, and you've shared a lot of stories, but I'm curious if you can get a little more granular with daily challenges that you've seen Alex navigate that most people wouldn't even think twice about. What comes to mind is 2 steps at a restaurant. If I see 2 steps, I'm like, that's fine. It's 2 steps. So are there other things like that maybe some people just don't even think about?
Yeah, that's a great question. And it's kind of hard to answer because I worked in rare disease patient advocacy organizations for 21 years. So when I think about most people, like what are most people not think twice about? I'm biased because my own circle of friends are rare disease zebras. Like, I have so many friends that are in the rare disease community. So I'm like, well, most people, you know, do think about these things. They do think about, well, they don't. So I sort of have to pause and think about, like, what is taken for granted. So if we're talking about people who are not living with a disability, rare, invisible, visible, then I would say taking the stairs is one that people really take for granted. They don't think about walking for more than 5 minutes, sleeping without oxygen tubes in your face. She has sleep apnea as one of her chronic conditions, but sleeping without oxygen tubes in your face. Most people don't schedule 2 to 3 hour nap in the middle of the day. Most people, if you were to say, let's drive from DC to New York, it's a 6-hour drive. Most people are like, that's fine. She can't do that. Like, she can't do road trips. She can't have a day of fun outdoors. We went to a political rally in DC, and it was very, very cold. And that affected her. That affected one of her 5 rare diseases. And it's very terrible, but there's things that people do that they don't think of that she just can't do. And it can be life-threatening if she tries to do some of these things.
Yeah. Yeah, that's when the pressure maybe to perform, to be involved, really gets tough, is when it's like, okay, no, like, this is a life-threatening situation. And I don't think you think about that when you think about just whatever, peer pressure or people not understanding. It can be life-threatening. Holy cow.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Like the rally in DC that we went to, there were hordes of people. And not like a stampede per se, but if the group is walking at a rate that she can't walk, she could get trampled.
Yeah.
So, like she can't be in a public setting where there's lots of people, because she just can't keep up with them. And when you see these rallies or events or marches, they have ambulances for a reason. I never thought about, like, why are there ambulances there? Because some people may actually, either not be able to keep up, or maybe there's dehydration issues, sun exposure issues, or if it's too cold, people can be affected that way. So, there's a lot I think that people take for granted about being out in the public. And for her, it's really safe to be at home. So she doesn't leave the house that much unless she has to.
Yeah. So, Debbie, we're going to turn the spotlight a little bit. You've shared a lot about Alex and what she's up against. What's it like for you supporting or even advocating for Alex in public, especially because her challenges aren't obvious?
Yeah, it's hard to put into words how emotional and exhausting it can be, especially in the early days of her diagnosis. People we encountered did not often know how to respond. Some of them were too busy, others were in denial because when she was diagnosed, we still didn't think she had a lot of time. Like,
Mm.
I acted every year for the first 10 years, I acted like this was her last year. And I did everything's bucket list. I was always with her, all my vacation days, everything, always with her, because I like, this could be the last time. It was very hard. But then to add a layer to that, other people who didn't wanna think about her having this, life-shortening disease, they were in denial, and maybe some people didn't even care. And, I had a family member who said, "She's not dead yet." Just really callous, and I don't know how she feels, but I'm sure she has experienced depression with this disease. And so, I don't wanna have her feel bad for me to feel that because I'm feeling bad, so I kinda have to hide it as a caregiver. Like, I have to hide the difficulty that I experience in sort of managing other people. Um, but that's not to say that everybody was, in denial or cruel. There are so many people who were really nice, so many people who, were loving, so I don't wanna focus on some of the people who are very cruel, but, the diagnosis has a way of revealing the true nature of relationships. Like her husband who, in sickness and in health wasn't able to deal with it, and it was devastating when he left. But he also couldn't deal with the emotional weight of her illness, and they had 3 babies. They had 3 daughters, so it's really hard. So in those early days, the doctors told her 2 years. She wouldn't live to see her 30th birthday. She did have clinical depression, and this news was crushing.
Mm.
The world was closing in on her, and I personally felt so distraught. I felt so powerless. I had no idea how to help her. I thought maybe there's a petition or something I can do to Congress. I really was clueless. And then, I started working at the Pulmonary Hypertension Association and learned all the different ways that I could fight back, which was amazing. But working there and being in the community, we've lost a lot of people to pulmonary hypertension. And each loss is a painful reminder of the disease and the fragility of life. And every time someone we know passes, I think this creeping thought, what about Alex? And I have a little bit of survivor's guilt, but I also have this fear, and when is it going to return? And sometimes she gets sick, and I'm like, oh my God, is this it? Is her heart failing? And she did have that 2 years ago, where it felt like this is it. And then she somehow turns it around. And whether it's she's on oxygen or she does PT or she could get pneumonia and be really sick, and then we don't know, is this it? And then, like, she just comes back. So the reality is a balancing act between hope and heartbreak.
Mm. I mean, just hearing that is difficult to always be up against that constant. Is this it? Is this the day? Is this the flu, or is this the cold that knocks her down and keeps her down? I can't imagine that kind of constant fear. if you will, or that thought process. That's tough.
Yeah, it just makes me want to spend more time with her, talk with her
Mhm.
every day.
Sure.
She got COVID and was in the ICU for a week. It was really scary, and I flew to California, to help her with her 9-year-old. That was really scary. So, she got into a car accident and was, helicoptered out to her, in Texas, helicoptered out. She's had very
Mm.
near-death experiences, and it's been really scary, but the humor in the dark humor that I have is I'm like, "She's a cockroach. She's gonna outlive us all." Like, like, I wanna be hopeful and,
Yeah.
and she's
Yeah.
and she's actually recently her pulmonary pressures, which is one of the indicators, is really good right now. So she is doing really well right now, and I'm hanging on to that.
Yeah, and I love your response to the uncertainty where you said, "It just makes me want to spend more time with her." I love that because we can get caught in the "why me?" Like, "This sucks. Life is crap. This is the worst." But you're like, "No, let's make the best of it. Let's go to as many Duran Duran concerts as we can and make the best of every single day." I love that.
Yeah, it's hard to hear and it's depressing on one end, but on the other end, it's encouraging to know that your cockroach of a sister is still doing life and living it up.
Yeah. Yep. I will say I have, a big family, 6 older siblings, and I used to give this caregiving talk when I worked at PHA, which was the tale of 2 sisters. So Alex was told she was gonna die in 2 years, and every summer I was with her, and then I had another sister who got diagnosed with cancer in January and died in April, and I wasn't spending that much time with her. And so while I am spending a lot of time because statistically, she has these rare diseases, you don't know
Yeah.
what could happen, like, she could outlive me. I we don't know, like, every day is precious, and
Mhm.
so while I do wanna spend a lot of time with her, I also need to balance out the other family members. So I'm actually doing more effort to, like, talk to my other siblings and spend time with them. I'm hosting a family reunion over the summer to bring everybody together, but, like, you really don't know, and having lost a sister, she was 39 when she died. My sister Susan, she had, cancer that was rare for her age. It usually
Mm.
strikes women in their 70s. So having had her pass away very quickly, I think just life is precious. And, you know, that's why I'm the cruise director. Like, I'm constantly wanting to bring people together. I love parties.
Yeah, we see your multicolored Mardi Gras nails. Love it.
Yeah. So it's life is meant to be celebrated.
Yeah.
And, I'm all about birthdays and parties and bringing people together because it's good. It's good to be alive.
Debbie, you talk about hope for the future and every day being precious. And we certainly agree, right? Even if for the most able-bodied, no issues whatsoever, totally healthy, life is precious no matter who you are or what you're up against. But I'm curious if you could speak to or maybe share what changes, big or small, would make life easier for families that are helping somebody in the family navigate invisible conditions.
Yeah. So my suggestion would be for families to embrace what we've been talking about of empathy, to really just pause and let other people be,
Mm.
without judgment. But also having patience and being humble to basically put your ego to the side and say, I don't know anything about this. I don't know anything about your disease. And, to put your judgment of like, you look normal in quotes. So when Alex was first diagnosed, she was raising 3 little girls and her challenges were immense. If her condition had been more visible, like needing a wheelchair more often, perhaps her in-laws, because she moved to Texas and her husband, they moved back to where he was from, because, we're from California. Well, she moved back to Texas and the in-laws might have been more empathetic if she were in a wheelchair. but she wasn't. They might have understood a little bit more of the depth of her struggles if she were in a wheelchair. Maybe they would have been more kind. Maybe they would have offered support, but and responded with love rather than judgment. And an example of what happened to her is really sad. So she's in this small town, and she was at Dairy Queen in this small town of 4,000 in Texas. And one of her in-laws told her, "You can't take your medication at the table." They were embarrassed. They're like, "Don't take your medication at the table." And
Oh,
she's at Dairy Queen. Like, it's not like a fancy restaurant. And even then, you take your medication if you want to. They told her to go use the bathroom. Go to the bathroom to take your medication. And, it's unsanitary, it's and so the disease that she has and having to take medication was stigmatized. She chose not to take her medication at all.
mm,
So the shame and stigma that she experienced was terrible. And she gets this stigma and shame having to prove her disease, having to prove,
mm,
you're only 28. Why do you need a wheelchair? You're only 28. Why can't you walk? Why are you on oxygen? Did you smoke? So empathy would stop these. I think empathy and non-judgment would stop these questions. Humility would have someone say, "Hey, can you tell me a little bit more about your condition?" Or
sure.
if you feel comfortable, "What's going on?" Or, "Oh, you're on oxygen. Are you okay?" Like maybe even asking questions that are sort of probing instead of saying, "Did you smoke?" Like making assumptions could be helpful.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's huge. The having to, I mean, it's one thing, I guess, if a total stranger is like, that's weird. But I imagine a whole nother thing when family, in-law or blood, you're having to fight for the ability to take your medication on time and wherever it's convenient. Like that blows my mind. That's sad.
Yeah. And she didn't have any support in that small town, so she started a support group. And it was her and the other person who was diagnosed that her doctor had identified. So, but she needed the support. She was so isolated with this disease and her in-laws. And then my mom finally moved to Texas and she felt more support. And I told her I was going to move when she was diagnosed, and she said, "Don't. God has a plan for
Mm,
me." I was in college. She's like, "Don't quit school to come live with me." I was like, "Who's going to raise your kids?" And
wow.
so many years later, she's doing okay and all is good. But, it would have been a huge sacrifice on my part to leave Southern California to go to Texas and drop out of college. But I was willing to do it because I thought she was going to die. And I thought these three girls,
Sure.
her little daughters, weren't going to have anybody. Like, you just sort of do what it takes. And thank God that wasn't the case. And she ended up being okay.
Wow. Yeah, I
Man.
can imagine the pressure on you and even your mom to prove that Alex needs extra, or support. That's
I
thankfully and hopefully in 25 years, society has come a long ways where maybe we are a little more empathetic. I know we have a long ways to go, for sure. Um, but I imagine maybe it's a little different today than it was 20, 30 years ago. Hopefully. I mean, that's part of what we all do, right? In the work with our nonprofits, this podcast, everything that we spend our energy on is to help other people recognize that you never know what other people are up against.
Yeah, that's why I think Rare Disease Day, Rare Disease Week, Rare Disease Month, and these milestones celebrating awareness is really important. And social
Mm,
media, and this podcast, you get the message out to people who are willing to listen and learn, and you create a more empathetic environment in society so people know more about rare diseases, and they know that it can be invisible, it can be disabling or not, it can happen to babies and adults and older people. So yeah, thank you guys for this podcast. I learn a lot every time, and I appreciate being a guest.
Well, we appreciate you being on and helping educate us and listeners. What do you think meaningful allyship looks like today from the outside? Whether it's friends, the workplace, colleagues, the community. What might it mean to be a true, ally and in aligning with whatever somebody like your sister is up against?
Yeah, invisible illnesses in the community, they people have challenges that are really, they're invisible. They go unseen, and it makes it very easy to misjudge or misunderstand what someone's truly going through. So I would say that a good ally would be compassionate, would be patient, would ask questions or would even say like, are you able to? Do you feel compelled to tell me a little bit more? Just coming gently and learning more. Or I'd like to learn more if this is a time that you'd like to tell me a little bit more about what you're going through. So empathy, understanding, these are really essential for an invisible disease and rare disease. And then taking the time to educate yourself about these illnesses. So if you're an ally, go learn and listen, learn, and then try to imagine what it's like to walk in the shoes of someone living with these conditions. And before jumping to conclusions, I think the pause is really important. Like wait before you ask, like, what's wrong with you? Why can't you keep up? Or why do we have to have an elevator? Like just wait and check in on the assumptions and be okay that things aren't the way you want them to be. Like I want 7 hours with my sister. I want us to drive to Hollywood and walk all over. That's not happening. And so if I assume that she's going to do my way, like, and I don't even talk to her about it, then I'm I'm going to be sorely disappointed and I'm going to be angry and she's going to be uncomfortable and it's just not going to be a good situation. So
Sure.
a good ally sees the big picture and offers kindness and support because you just don't know. It's isolating and depressing to go out in the world and people just don't understand and are sometimes antagonistic. So I think just being loving and supporting and patient are traits for a good ally.
Beautifully said.
Yep. I like it.
Debbie, finally, if you could correct one misunderstanding, which we all three of us know there are a million, but if you could correct just one misunderstanding about invisible conditions or caregiving, what might that be?
I just have to pick one. I mean, people are complex and illness doesn't look or manifest the way we might expect. If someone shares that they have a condition, this is crazy to say, but if they tell you they have a condition, believe them. If they express their needs, respect them. If they explain why they can't do this or that, the activity you want to do, accept it. Don't question it. Instead of expecting the person to adapt to your expectations, try adapting yourself to their world.
Those are such simple things, right? And that's why it's so powerful. But I think there needs to be a recognition that it's not automatic. It's difficult and it takes effort from us to get to that spot of everyone being accepted for who they are. But I love this wonderful reminder of all the simple yet difficult things we need to be thinking about.
Yeah, simple but can't be said enough. Well, Debbie, you have been an incredible individual to know for 9 or 10 years, whatever it's been, but also you've been a great interview today. Thank you so much for coming on the show, being a part of it, and sharing so much about your own personal life, of course, Alex's journey. And I know that you spoke to Alex about coming on the show and allowing us to pick your brain about her. So thank you to her as well for being willing to share and allow you to share on her behalf as well. Thank you.
Yep. Thanks.
Thank you so
Debbie.
much for having me. You guys can crash any of my parties.
Right. Open invitation. I love that.
Open invitation. Bring it.
That's on record. Just so you know.
Recorded. Yeah.
Fly on over to DC. Fly on over to DC. You can crash any of my parties. There will be Cats and Duran Duran playing.
Debbie, thank you again. We hope you have a fabulous day, and we look forward to our listeners gaining some insight from our conversation today.
Thanks, Debbie.
Thank you. Thanks for having me. I really appreciate it. I'm very honored. Thanks.
Well, Kyle, we said it. She's the life of the party. You can feel that. You can sense it.
Totally.
Debbie's got some incredible energy and this attitude that says, I'm going to make the most out of whatever life throws at
Yep.
me. So I'm really grateful for her time, her energy, and what she put into the conversation. Very, very insightful and heartwarming for sure.
Yeah, I think it's a good example of doing as much as possible today, like being in the moment, being the life of the party, but also thinking about everyone around you and the future of everyone, right? She basically reformatted her life based on herself. Like her whole career is based on her sister being diagnosed with a
Sure.
rare disease, right? So anyway, she's a great person to have in our lives. I'm grateful for her role in her sister's life, and it was just wonderful to connect.
Yeah, absolutely. We hope that you've enjoyed these last 2 episodes with Debbie and hearing a bit of her perspective. Like Kyle said, we are incredibly grateful for the way she is moving through life for the sake of her family and for so many of us in the rare disease world. Kyle, let's wrap this 2-part episode up with some thank you notes. We end every episode with a note of gratitude because gratitude helps keep us grounded. So, Kyle, who is your thank you note going out to today?
You've heard me talk about Raditaxia Hometown. It's a fairly new program where anyone could do a ride in their own hometown and invite their friends. And in Louisiana, actually yesterday, as we're recording this, Kaylee Newcity led a team with Sydney Dupree, Sam Dupree, and Kyle Duhan, and they did an awesome event yesterday.
Wow.
I've seen some pictures. I can't wait to talk to them and get the full download, but they raised, I think by the end, they'll be over $20,000.
Wow.
And, you know, it's wonderful for FA research progress, but also, like, they put on an awesome event and people had a great time.
Yeah.
And when you think about how terrible Friedreich's ataxia is, and they were able to turn it into a wonderful experience for people, it's just awesome. And so I thank Kaylee, Sydney, Sam, and Kyle.
That's cool. I love hearing that. I met Sam not too long ago virtually, and I've spent some time with Sydney, pretty rad people.
Yep.
My thank you is inspired by my cruise talk. You know, I'm getting ready for the one I'm going on personally, but it reminds me of the one we did as a group a couple of months ago, and the photos that came out of our very first Rare at Sea was because of Laurel Coffee. She's a mom of an individual with FA, and she came on the cruise. She brought her camera and was willing to just take photos of everybody all the time. So we got some beautiful images from the group cruise, and that's all because of Laurel Coffee and her work in the photography space. And let me add this too, Kyle. You know, we had like 80 people on the boat, and we're trying to figure out how do we get the whole group and maybe a professional picture. And I wanted Laurel in it. So I went to the photo people on the cruise because they have those, and you pay a lot of money to buy prints or digital files. And I thought, I wonder what it would take to just set a time and say, hey, can you send a photographer and take a photo?
Yeah.
Well, she was like, oh, let me ask her. Hold on, let me get back to you. So she disappears for a minute, comes back, asks me a question, disappears again. And then she eventually comes back and she says, well, we can help you, but usually for groups, we have a group package and you can secure a photographer at 4:00 for $600.
Oh.
And I'm like, wait, what?
600.
And I'm like,
Normally, 10 minutes.
Normally, you guys are just walking around, taking. I just want you to walk in a specific area at 4:00. Is that? or you tell me where you're going to be and we'll show up. And she's like, nah, sorry. Yeah, for groups, we don't do it that way. It's this package and it's $600. And I'm like, okay, thanks. Bye. I'm like,
Yeah.
are you kidding me? It's just an opportunity. Anyway, Laurel agreed to just gift us her talent, right? No reason to charge $600. In fact, she didn't charge anything. She just said, I want to do it. So,
Yeah.
incredibly grateful for her.
By the way, her photos are probably better than what the crews could do. Yeah. I see her stuff on Instagram. All her photos, like, she has a really specific look to her photos, and they're so warm and just wonderful. She did a great job.
She knows what she's doing, for sure.
Yeah.
Of course, we're grateful for you as well. Thank you for listening and being a part of the 2DD squad. Right. If you've enjoyed this episode or the show, please share it with a friend. Be sure to rate and review the show. Those things go a long way in helping us continue what we're doing here. Be sure to check out our show notes at 2disableddudes.com for links to some of the things we talked about today. We look forward to talking with you again soon. Until next time, keep living with urgency.
Thank you for listening to the 2 Disabled Dudes podcast. This show is possible with your support. Visit 2disableddudes.com to stay connected.
Find us on Facebook and Instagram. And be sure to subscribe on your favorite podcast player.